Sometimes we pretend things only happen to strangers. We've all got problems of our own. You guys recognize that? Yeah, it's from Turn the Page on the Hold Your Fire album. Guys, welcome back. I'm Eric. We're going to be looking at a New York Times article. There's a picture of the four: Geddy, Anika, Alex, and Lauren, or as I say, Gala, as in Geddy, Alex, Lauren, and Anika. Yeah, Gala. Where have I been? What's been going on? I have molded over a million times in my mind. How do I talk about this? Should I talk about this? How much should I share about the journey I've been on since I was in the hospital? That's right. I had to be admitted into the heart hospital. I've had a quadruple bypass surgery. It was from a birth defect in my heart and a battery of insane, intrusive tests. I still have bruises on my arms where there was an IV and they drew blood for different tests. Some kind of nuclear test, an MRI, and X-rays, and some kind of gamma ray. So I'm really hoping that I get superpowers out of this. Like health would be nice. I don't even need to shoot webs or in all. I would like my health. And so I'm in the heart hospital. They're running all these tests because I've been really worried about things lately. And I keep going back to, I went back and forth to marathon, right? I thought about the song Marathon and how our lives are a marathon. And when you look at it as if we're in a short sprint, you're going to wear our real fast. We need to build up our endurance just to live our lives, just to cope with our lives and all the crap that's thrown at us. And of course, we have good times, but it's the crap we remember. It's the hard days that affect us. But then I keep going. I almost made a short about marathon. Okay, so yeah, marathon. And then I'm like, crap, I don't care for this music. It's okay, but I really don't care for that song that much. And I tried 10 times to make a short, and I even had some cool graphics for it, a little bit of video, and I was going to make a short for marathon, and I didn't. No inspiration. I didn't care, and I will at some point circle back, hate that term, to the marathon song. It is truly applicable to our lives, but turning the page, and that's what this video is about. Rush is turning the page with Anika and with Lauren. Geddy and Alex are going out on tour. As you know, they are truly finally turning the page. That's what I got stuck on, and that's what really resonated with me. Guys, we're going to be talking about this, the New York Times article. Thanks for being here. I'm Eric. This is the Loudboy Experience, and let's go. I'm in the heart hospital. I'm getting all these tests done. I wanted to rule out the fact that because they pulled veins and arteries from my body to replumb my heart and to bypass all that things. Heck, they took my heart and they stopped it and put it on a machine. So I technically have been dead, supported by machines while they did all that work. I survived that. I'm now a couple years out from heart surgery, but I had to make sure I'm okay, because I do want to stick around a little bit longer. But I've been getting shortness of breath, and I've been getting exhausted a lot, and my heart does race, and I do have kind of high blood pressure. So I go and I get all these tests done. I mentioned them before, the gamma, the nuclear, and all these things that may or may not still give me superpowers. And then the takeaway was, yeah, it looks fine. You look fine. However, one of their scans brought back the fact that my lungs have an issue. So it's the lungs. It's not the heart working with my respiratory to, do all the blood oxygen exchange, and because that's what the lungs do. But the heart is, they work in tandem, right? You don't live without lungs and a heart. But there's something going on with my lungs. It could be serious. I don't have answers. This is why I've had to make some changes. I've changed my diet. I'm eating a lot more whole foods now. No processed foods to the best of my ability. No fast food. I'm cooking more just for health reasons. I'm also walking. I've rededicated myself to getting my health back. I've put on like 20 pounds. There's a reason why I sit this way. It's for vanity's sake. I don't want to show you my profile because I have put on weight. my life sort of demands that. You know what? I am sick and freaking tired of dealing with health issues. I've been dealing with them for like 30 years now. After I had multiple reconstructive neck surgeries, I am crippled with chronic pain. I am disabled because of that. Then you add the heart surgery. Now there's something going on with my lungs, and it's medical, doctor, appointment, medication, and all these things. And it's like you're reading a book, right? And you're stuck on a chapter of this book. And in my case, it's my book. And I'm stuck on this one chapter. Why am I stuck there? I've been having trouble dealing with it, having trouble coping with it, having trouble finding the answers, having trouble figuring out how to live with the new information that's been revealed as I turn these pages of this one chapter. But I need to turn the page. I need to flip that page over to the next chapter. And that's been very difficult since I was in the hospital. There have been many points in my life in which I've been dealt serious blows emotionally, psychologically, especially physically. And learning to turn the page and go on to the next chapter can be very difficult. We often get caught up, whether it be death, whether it be something physical that's going on in our lives. I know a couple of you have had cancer in this audience. I can't fathom what you've been through. And the things that I go through that are chronic in nature, the things that I will be stuck with until my last breath on this earth. And it's really easy to allow those things to, here's a chapter, chronic pain. Here's a chapter in my heart. Here's a chapter with a massive question mark. What's going on with my lungs? And I can talk more about that. I have some theories as to why they're screwed up. But the point is this. A lot of times in our lives, we get stuck there. It's like, and for me, it was like Arrested Development. When I found out at a really young age, like 21 years old, that, hey, guess what? We have to go in and rebuild your neck. Then you're going to wear a halo brace for many months just to fuse the bones in the top part of your neck. And then guess what? You have to do it all over again. And this time we're going to fuse your spine to the base of your skull. And then you have to wear a halo again. Oh, and by the way, I had just come back from my honeymoon. I was newly married. I have suffered from arrested development from that moment in time. And I took many years for me to turn the page emotionally from that moment. It hurt that bad. It catastrophically affected my life to such a degree. The thought of going out and directing Hollywood movies, it was over. And then saying, I'm going to be a husband, I'm going to be a dad, and those are rewarding enough. I'm not saying they're not. But when you have this diametric shift in reality, marked by a moment in time and something that you're dealing with, and then when it's chronic in nature and keeps going on, we tend to get frozen in that moment and unable to turn the page to new opportunities, to what's coming next, and to what could come. And I imagine Geddy and Alex have dealt with this very thing since they lost Neil, not only the drummer for 40-something years, but their good friend for all those decades, a close brother and friend. When you lose that, and then they have all these questions. Are Carrie and Olivia, Neil's wife and daughter, are they going to be okay with it? What do the fans think? Can we do it? And yes, they did want to do it. And that's what we're going to look at in this New York Times article. The fact that they are truly turning the page. Guys, I don't have all the answers. Just know that I'm doing my best. I'm trying to make changes, and when my life is so already consumed with these chronic things in my life, my heart, and then my lungs, and my neck, and then guess what? Then change my diet, and I've been walking many miles. I have a cool little walking treadmill, and I just watch TV, and I walk. And I've been forcing myself to do that, and I enjoy it. But it takes a concerted effort to make a change and to turn a page. Health-wise, mentally, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually. And when we get stuck on that certain chapter, that horrific chapter in your lives, It's not easy. I know it's not easy. I've been there and I've dealt with the inability to flip the page over and go, well, look at the next chapter. The next chapter is freaking amazing. But we're stuck back here in this chapter, wallowing in the grief, wallowing in the pain, which brings us back full circle right before we're going to go talk about the article real soon, guys. And I love this line from Turn the Page. We can't soothe pain with sympathy. All that we can do is be reminded and just shake our heads at the tragedy. Of course, every day we're standing in a time capsule, racing down the river. I love it. Here's another reference to the river. Neil's mentioned this many times from Tom Sawyer and all these other songs. River from the past. Every day we're standing in a wind tunnel, facing down the future coming fast. It's just an age, it's just a stage. We disengage and we turn the page, and that's really key. Okay, these different things happen. It talks about checking the long range forecast, the state of the nation, and you know the lyrics, right? And we do all these things simultaneously in our lives as we cope with our personal sphere, whether it be family, the personal, physical, and emotional things through which we're going. Then your family's attached to that, and then in another sphere out here is the world, and you have a frenzy. You have all these rotating orbs, okay? And at the center, of course, is you, the nucleus. You're at that center. That's you in the middle. And then you have all these worlds, okay, revolving around you, right? And sometimes we're just so stuck right here in the center because we're just trying to control what we can. It's hard enough some days just to cope, just to get by, just to deal with the trials of the day. And yet, I say over and over, and I practice this to the best of my ability, do not be anxious for anything. Okay? Trust in yourself. You can trust in God. And just do not be anxious. It doesn't add anything to your life. Anxiety doesn't. And that's easier said than done. But I have learned that coping mechanism to pull anxiety out of my life. And I might be dealing with a mountain of crap. And I'm dealing with so much. And then I have the pressures from all these other orbs spinning around me. They're all pressuring me. And when I start pulling my focus out here and I start getting anxious about all the things around me, and what you find is the structural integrity of your life it's cracking, it's disintegrating, it's falling apart. And that's anxiety. Don't do it. Shift your focus and disengage and turn the page. This is a New York Times article, and I have my son Ethan to thank for sharing this. I guess recently he subscribed to the New York Times, and when the Rush article popped up, he had to send it to me, and I'm so glad he did. It's out of the blue. Ethan, my oldest son, writes me, and he said, "Dad, I have a deal for you. I will get you and I will buy you a Switch 2. That's right. I haven't had the Nintendo Switch 2 yet. I've been wanting to get it really bad because this is my original Switch, the OLED Zelda model. And then he's like, I'm going to buy you a Switch 2 if you'll give me the GameCube and a bunch of GameCube games and stuff. So basically, yes, I've had 2 GameCube. I have all the Nintendo systems going back to the NES, to the SNES, to the 64, to the Wii, the Wii 2, the GameCube, and beyond. So, including multiple Nintendo DS and 3DS systems. So I sent him a massive package of vintage gaming stuff. What's really cool is he took the GameCube I sent him, which had the Game Boy Advance adapter on it as well. He took that, traded it for one with a digital output that is fully functional, and now he's playing vintage GameCube games. So I'm really proud of him. It's really cool. And what did I get out of it? Yes, an upgrade from my Switch 1 to the new Switch 2. And just look at the size difference here. Okay? How can I best? All right, so there's the size. Yeah, the screen is just much bigger. It's a huge, huge screen. And I love it. It is amazing. It is brilliant. Also, you've probably seen in the commercials, right? These are magnetically attached like that. And also, I got a new Pro controller as well. So I've been playing a lot of Switch 2 in my downtime. It has been beautiful, and I'm loving every moment. So thank you, Ethan, for the Switch 2. Here's my thing. My kids, especially Ethan, are going to inherit all my vintage gaming stuff anyway. So this was an easy trade. It's like giving him an early inheritance, and I get a Switch 2 out of it. And I'm really looking forward to actually playing Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom again using the Nintendo app. And in the Nintendo app, it has map stuff where you can find all the different things and that whole integration there. And I'm thinking about making some more Zelda videos. This channel, the Loudboy channel, started off that way and me making Zelda videos. Fast forward to today, the Loudboy experience, and now I'm thinking about going full circle and maybe making some more Zelda videos. So guys, stay tuned for that. So, to the article, let's give it a look. The title is Rush Lost His Beloved Drummer. The band is ready to get back on the road. After losing Neil Peart to cancer 6 years ago, the trio is returning to touring with Anika Nilles, a powerhouse drummer who's forged her own relationship with the group. All right, this is by Hank Steamer. Okay. And he actually went up to Toronto where Rush was rehearsing. Geddy, Alex, Anika, and Lauren rehearsing in a studio, and this is at the end of April. And okay, actually, he was there in late March. It said in the first paragraph, in late March, tucked into a small studio on a quiet Toronto side street. Rush is doing something the storied prog rock outfit had not done in more than a decade, rehearsing for a tour. You know, after losing their drummer Neil Peart to brain cancer in 2020, the Canadian trio had gone silent. But on this rainy Sunday, the group with new touring member Anika Nilles, and that's what's interesting. This article actually calls her a new touring member. You know, we've had some discussions about, is this Rush Mark III? Okay, the third stage of Rush. And it's a really big question, right? Are Anika and Lauren bona fide parts of the group with new music? I mean, I think that's still a story that will be told and is still kind of remaining out there. But this article for now has called her a new touring member, which is accurate, obviously. Anika Nilles behind the kit was running through some epic early 80s deep cut, preparing for the 50-something tour. Of course, the set list for 50-something is really top secret. They're not letting anything through the cracks just yet. So, and then a worldwide trek that includes nearly 90 dates and kicks off June 7th in LA. After they wrapped up, the vocalist Geddy huddled in the control room with their other new touring recruit, of course this is Lauren Gold, to iron out a sticky transition. So that's what's really interesting, is that Geddy with triggers that and in keyboard parts, you know, he would play the key, you know, Geddy accomplished keyboard parts, and with some triggers from Alex and a little bit from Neil through the years. All the keyboards we heard of the albums were triggered and active and played by the trio in some form or fashion, mostly by Geddy. Now, think about this new phase. A dedicated keyboard player. And we saw this recently at the Juno Awards. Lauren Gold back there playing on keys. And of course, he's part of the foursome lineup that you see behind me. And here he is right here as well. So that's what's really fascinating, is that Geddy now has to work with Lauren to make sure that, you know, of course, he's up to the task. That's not what I'm talking about. But Geddy is very methodical and very specific with how he plays, what he's composed, and how he wants it played live. So, of course, they're working together to make this the best transition they can from the old way to the new way. And as Geddy said, this will free up a lot of time for him on stage to move around and have some fun. So they're ironing out a sticky transition. Lee, of course, Geddy, in his tinted glasses, brown hair, shoulder length. So they're describing him. Soon emerged a beat. And he corralled his bandmates, crew members, several visitors to screen an iPhone video shot by Geddy's wife that showed him holding their little dog, his terrier, and it's howling along with his vocal warm. So that's really cool. The dog is actually howling along with Geddy, and I'd love to. I hope he releases that video sometime. And Geddy says she's never done this before. Speaking of his dog, Lee, 72 years old, is beaming at their interspecies duet. Throughout the afternoon, Rush tore through 11 of the 38 songs they've been rehearsing. So they weren't wrong. Remember that really early announcement video where we saw Geddy, Alex, and Anika on screen? We showed it here on this channel. We talked about it. Well, they asked her, how many songs should we play? And she said, 40? So anyway, they are doing, and it looks like they have at least 38 here. Of course, they have mentioned that this set list will be interchangeable and will make some shifts from night to night and plugging songs in and out as they go to kind of keep it rotating, keep it fresh. Think about it. They got multiple dates in each city, so you don't want to play exactly the same concert each night. At least I don't think that's their intention. Hence the rotating song list. And of course, yes, as I mentioned before, these songs are closely guarded. Between takes, the musicians prioritized a rapid fire comic banter, so they're having a lot of fun. That song has so many words, Lee mocked, groaned. This guitar has so many strings, so they're joking around. So many words. Because it actually, you've probably seen it before, right? Whether you've seen it live or you've seen it on, one of the Blu-ray releases, that Geddy has a monitor with the lyrics, which is actually smart, man. If I'm up there and I'm having to play that many things from bass pedals, keyboards, bass guitar, and sing all those Rush lyrics, it would be helpful to have just a visual guide and have those lyrics going, like a teleprompter in front of them. At least that's what I think. The next day, during an extended sit down with Lifeson at Barbarians, I'm assuming that that's the steakhouse photo that we see up here at the beginning here. So they're sitting down at this steakhouse. Here we go. The next day, sitting down for an extended time at this historic steakhouse in Toronto, Lee's favorite booth features a small gold badge with his birth name. And Lee summed up, rushes them out. The way we work best is to be intense and pay attention to detail, he said. And then the minute the song is over, get as ridiculous. I love that, right? Serious, head down, get the work done, and strive for excellence, perfection. But when you're done, you cut up and have a lot of fun. My best friends throughout my life, we were the same way. We're very intense, very specific about what we did, about what we're trying to accomplish, and yet it was just, we had a lot of fun, in the off time. So here's a great picture of Neil, by the way. This is Neil in the late 70s playing with all his micro flourishes. And of course, of all his fans air drumming along. That's the caption below. The levity in the Rush camp is noteworthy, given the formidable task at hand. So they're having a lot of fun, but imagine the task at hand. The upcoming shows will be the first in 11 years. And they will be the first in 5 decades first in 5 total decades without Peart, whose hyper meticulous playing style and probing philosophical lyrics, that's a mouthful, made him an icon to generations of brainy rock introverts. That's a great sentence. That really does describe me. Does that describe you as well, right? His meticulous playing, his philosophical lyrics, and becoming an icon to us rock introverts. That kind of sums it all up. The tour will explicitly honor him during this evening-length 2-set shows. This is going to be done in 2 sets. In the back of my mind and in the back of my heart, it's felt like unfinished business, like we owe him a proper thank you and celebration. I like that. That's Lee, that's Geddy saying. Not a morbid funeral-like thing. We want to celebrate the wonderful music that 3 of us spent almost 50 years writing together. In 2022, Lee and Lifeson reunited with guest drummers including Dave Grohl and Tool's Danny Carey for mini sets of an all-star tributes to Taylor Hawkins. Held at London's Wembley in the Forum in California, the events energized them. And they've spoken of this, right? Those events and them playing with other drummers got them excited about playing their music again, and in addition, showed them more of what it would be like to play with other drummers. Of course, Alex has been playing with Envy of None. Alex had a solo album with a different drummer, and back in the day, again, this is 20 years ago, both Alex and Geddy played with other drummers, but they needed a refresher course, right? What is it like to play with someone? Of course, they were still with Peart. Well, those were the Ghostwriter years, but you know what I mean? The potential was still to be with Neil during those years. So, but this really energized them. And Paul McCartney urged them to get back. So that's been another story here, that Paul McCartney played a big part in telling Geddy Lee, and maybe Alex or both, one or the other, to, hey, get out there and play, mates. So I believe that was Paul McCartney. Never argue with a Beatle. Alex jokes. In a video interview, Stuart Copeland, the Police drummer, and a friend of Peart's, who also appeared in the Hawkins tributes, recalled the goodwill surrounded by Lee and Lifeson there. I think it reminded them of what they were missing, just to be playing in front of a big crowd, because they were extremely and warmly, of course, embraced. Backstage, all the musicians had warm fuzzies of Alex and Geddy. Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of crossover there, right? Taylor Hawkins and Dave Grohl of Foo Fighters. May Taylor rest in peace. Huge Rush fans. They were there at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So there's a lot of crossover there with, I mean, and of course any drummer and musician worth their salt at least respects Rush, if not loves their music. Casual jams in Lee's basement ensued. Talk of reunion grew more serious. Lifeson, managing digestive issues and persistent arthritis. Okay, so there it is. They are mentioning their arthritis. Hesitated, but eventually signed on. You know, again, like we started off in the beginning of this video, me talking about the things that I go through, the challenges that I face physically. They take their toll emotionally as well. They make you second guess what you're able to accomplish. They make you second guess the goals you set, the dreams that you have, the dreams that you think you can achieve and strive for. When your body is tearing you down and pulling you down, you do second guess those things. So I can understand Alex being hesitating about signing on. So around this time, Lee pulled up a video of Anika Nilles, a German drummer, 30 years his junior, and from their longtime bass tech, Scully, who had gotten to know Jeff Beck on tour, and they enthusiastically recommended her. This is a deep talent, Lee thought. Can she play Rush? We had no idea. There's a picture of Ged. Nilles, who found online fame in the early 2010s with tasteful playthroughs of her own jazz fusion originals. By the way, I haven't mentioned this yet. I have quite a deep background with jazz music, okay? Of course, going throughout school into college, I played tons of jazz. I'm a sax player. My soprano sax is right back here. And I'm sort of pointing at it. And I played tenor sax through all those years in school. And so, yes, I love jazz. I love jazz fusion things. I've listened to things like the Rippingtons or the Yellow Jackets and things in different fusion type bands where they play rock, but it's also jazz and so on. So, therefore, her pedigree, background, and the things that she loved coming into this, I really respect and I like myself. And in addition, being able to play really great jazz music is truly next level and a lot of times more complicated and harder to play than a lot of rock music. Not all, of course, but a lot of straightforward rock. Yeah, jazz trumps that easily. Moving on. So yeah, she's playing jazz. He had barely heard Rush. This was really interesting. Anika had barely heard Rush until Scully tipped her off that they wanted to chat. Mind blowing. Okay, so we'll just leave that there. I'd like to know what you think. She barely knew who Rush was. At least that's what she says. Okay, growing up, her drumming hero was Jeff Porcaro of Toto. And she really liked the style. She got a crash course in the music, then jumped on a Zoom from Germany. I'm having a call with two of the most iconic guys in a really she's in a crappy motel room, right? In a really crappy room. She recalled being mortified with a laugh. Okay, next up. Then they invited her to Toronto in the spring of 2025 to play a handful of Rush songs across 5 days. Kind of an interview, a tryout. On the fourth day, Lee said, "There's no sliver of a doubt. Not about her overall abilities, but her ability to grasp the nuances of Peart's style." That is important. Grasping the nuances of how Neil played, the parts that he composed, and so on. Geddy saw this, so that's great. And as Lifeson put it, the stuff between all the big roles. Okay, so they're seeing a deeper level here, right? There's one thing about being able to play a drum part, but those little flourishes the space between the beats, the rests, and how you play it, and just in how you attack that part can be diametrically different than someone just you've heard it before, haven't you? Right? There's a regular drum and you can play. There's different ways to play a drum beat. So anyway, I have a feeling what they're saying, but Lifeson added something clicked with her when we rehearsed on that fifth day, and she just nailed it. An official invite came at the end of the trip. Niles, who's 42 years old, says she only realized the magnitude of what she was stepping into on the flight home. So it finally hit her on the flight home. I had a sip of wine on the airplane, she said. I flew over Toronto and saw the skyline and everything, and I thought, like, crazy. This is Anika talking about after she gets the job, she's flying home. She's like, holy crap, I'm going to be playing with Rush. I think it finally hit her there. At the rehearsal in March, Lee played and sang from inside an isolation booth, but he had Niles in his sideline, and the two shared a palpable camaraderie, exchanging animated looks as they navigated the song's daredevil twists. Occasionally, they derailed, and the overall mood was one of exhilaration, not stress. I can't keep up with you, Lee told Niles warmly in the conclusion of one of Rush's naughtiest pieces, as in not naughtiest, but you see the word, not naughtiest. On their way to the control room for a break, they high-fived. Interesting. Building a relationship. I'm going to be a bit sad when we hit the stage and I'm facing the audience and not facing her because I'm having so much fun playing along with her. Wow. So important though, right? So important that the bass player and the drummer have that connection, right? They are the rhythm section, and you need that connection between bass and drums. It's super important to keeping a groove and is playing really good music. Super fans, minding the endless micro flourishes of Neil Peart's parts, will find them well accounted for in Niles' renditions. But overall, her approach, a blend of jazzy finesse and pile-driving power, focuses more on the in-the-moment energy than forensic faithfulness. Interesting take. I'll let you tell me what you think about that line. The focus on in-the-moment energy than forensic faithfulness. Okay? I have a thought. A little bit of liberty there, but you know what, though? If you're adapting a novel to a movie, you never want to completely take word for word that novel and try to put it on the screen. It's impossible. You shouldn't do it. What you do is interpret the source material, and you write the best screenplay you can, 120 pages, which is 2 hours long, and you put it into a 3 act structure that most movies are. So when you're doing adaptations, my point is this: she should be able to have some interpretation, taking Neil Peart's parts for Rush through her specific lens, experience, know-how, and style, and channel that into playing those parts, right? There should be some Anika in this now, right? It shouldn't be just a carbon copy or a facsimile or a forensic faithfulness of Neil. Do we want them to be accurate? Yes. Do we want them to sound like they used to? Of course we do. But I can understand her having some interpretation. So I'm using that book to movie comparison here. Next up, a good indicator of how well she has acclaimed a frequent approving nods from Lorne, Peart's trusted former drum tech known as Gump, of course, we know him, who came out of retirement to work with Niles on the tour. At this rehearsal, sitting in Niles' right, he gave off the aura of a Jedi Master watching the new recruit wield the Force. Of course, a new Padawan learner, if you will. I love it. In the original movies, right? 4, 5, and 6 now, okay? Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. There was no Padawan name. So Luke was simply the student, right? The apprentice to the Jedi Master of Yoda, for example. Or Obi-Wan before that, I guess. My point is that whole Padawan thing is, it's like, that was something George came up with for the prequels, right? One, two, and three. I move on. So they did the call her a new recruit. They didn't use the word Padawan. But I nerd out with Star Wars and I will move on. Wheaton, of course, this is Gump, is fully aware of the tightrope that Niles is walking as she prepares to face what is perhaps the most air drum prone fan base and rock. Yes, of course, we all know there. All of us doing air drums in the audience. I've done it. I'm sure you have as well. So yes, and imagine having to face that. You're playing Neil's parts, you're playing with Rush, and everyone's out here playing along with you. She's probably never seen this before, and it's gonna be great for her to see it the first time. There's a certain signature. There's a certain signature songs that I have to have the same parts, he said during an interview in the studio, because there's going to be those kids and adults and girls flailing their arms around, and they're going to have every note for note, and they're going to go, oh, that didn't happen. What's going on? So again, that's an interesting take, right? We're all expecting a certain thing, and what if it's slightly different? And that's basically what this is saying. Reflecting on Peart's death, Wheaton became emotional. It still kicks in, he said. But working with Anika, he said, kind of like revives the excitement. Niles said, during her Rush experience so far, I am not so sure, and I'm texting Gump, and he's always there to help me out with ideas or share his perspective and experience in working with Neil. It's so great that he's there, though, right? To help her make this transition. For someone who worked and was so highly trusted by Neil for all those years, for him to work with her now, that's a beautiful thing. So many times, Rush, if you watch the Blu-rays and watch all that footage of them doing the tour, setting up, traveling between cities, and doing the whole tour mechanism, right? It truly was a family. They had a lot of these people for decades back, from management to crew to lighting to sound design to doing the mix and Lauren and different drums, bass, techs, the people working with Geddy, working with Neil, and so on. It really was a family affair. So really, this is calling a family member out of retirement to work with the new drummer, and it's just great that he's there for her, because he knew Neil. Neil trusted him, and I'm glad he's there for her. Lee and Lifeson have been similarly hands-on in helping her adjust. At the early session, she said, I got a really good idea about what Neil was as a band member, but he was also a friend. So you cannot replace that, I'm basically here to help them get their music back on stage, make it feel right for them, and make it feel right for the fans. Good. Beyond his enthusiasm for playing with Niles, Lee said that the presence of gold, of course, this is Lauren on keyboard, the keyboardist who would take over the complex array of background textures that Lee used to trigger with his foot pedals, we mentioned this already, is allowing him to focus more on the fun parts of his job. I want to offload this to someone else so I can just focus on playing bass and singing and getting away from my mic so I can meet up with that guy, meaning up with Alex in the center of the stage. I'm glad he's getting some of this offloaded. That was a 3-ring circus that Geddy put on. Okay, we've mentioned this already. All the things that he had to accomplish simultaneously while playing Rush music. Taking some of that load off, he can focus more on his voice now. The bass, that's just second nature. Okay, pretty much second nature. He can play that, but I want him to nail those vocal parts. So I like that he can focus more on that. Because some of you have had concern about, I'll say it, some of you who have had concern about, him being able to sing for all these 90 dates. We'll do some dancing. Remember that in the old days, they used to do the rock back and forth? That probably went up through the mid to late 80s, and then it abruptly stopped. It could have gotten into the early 90s, but they stopped that. And I'm wondering who made that decision. Because, they used to kind of rock back and forth together. You guys remember it, right? And then it just stopped right away. So interesting. So it's funny that he says we're going to do some dancing. Lifeson, I think he's probably joking around. Yeah, he's joking around. Another source of excitement for them is the impressive state of Lee's famously agile voice, which he credits to recent work with. Okay, he's been working with a vocal coach. Okay, we just mentioned this. A lot of us have had concern about him being old, so he has actually gone out. I told you, and I've mentioned this many times in our videos. What do we know about Rush for all these years? They strive for excellence, and a lot of times shoot for perfection. Unobtainable, of course, but shooting for it and striving for perfection, nothing wrong with that. My point is this: I love that Geddy went to a vocal coach. It makes all the sense in the world. Back to the story, and he's brought back part of my range that I thought had left. Wow, guys, let's one more time. Geddy has gone to a vocal coach, and his range is coming back, which is so important. You're going to play a lot of those early songs, the really high. He's probably talking about the high stuff, right? Love that. Love that. This is a picture of Alex. The tour has the support of Peart's family, his widow, Carrie, and of course, their daughter, Olivia. And they released a joint statement. You guys can read that on the website, by the way. And there's a link here in the story. Both Olivia and Carrie. And this is new that I learned this. Olivia is going to contribute an essay to the official program. I love that. So Neil's daughter, Olivia, is going to write something for the program for the tour. That's really special. I'm glad to hear that. So guys, right there, not only do they have their endorsement, but Olivia is going to write something for this. In a video with, I believe, Carrie. They contrasted their verve for live performance and reluctance. Okay, so what this is saying is Carrie knew about, and they all knew that Geddy and Alex wanted to keep touring, but Neil didn't. Okay, even at the end, they had to convince him to do R40, and that wasn't easy to get him back on the road. And of course, we know this line. They're 3-hour shows. Peart likened it to running a marathon while solving equations. Yes, even though you're hitting things with sticks, the physical exertion, the mental output that you have, is like running a marathon while solving equations. It's really taking its full toll physically. That's Carrie mentioning that, his final years. He was always ready to retire then anyhow, and then they were not. Okay, so this is again towards the end, R40 those years. She also mentioned Rush's 1981 classic Limelight, which frankly addressed Peart's conflicted relationship with fame. Limelight, Olivia and I have always said, this is Carrie talking, okay? Limelight, they've always known that this is Daddy's theme song. We've talked about this, of course, right? We know that Limelight is Neil, or Neil's experience and Neil's view of fame and all this kind of stuff. If he could play music and not deal with all the fame, the gilded cage, that would be beautiful. So, both Olivia and Carrie, Neil's wife and daughter, they knew that this is Daddy's theme song. That's kind of beautiful. Because he did not really enjoy being in the public eye. He was quite an introvert, and it was hard on him, the touring. Speculating on how Peart may have reacted to Lee and Lifeson touring without him, Carrie went on and said, this is what she thinks Neil would say, right? In response, oh, Geddy and Alex are touring? Neil would say, why? Or, you guys are just nuts. He would, of course, say this laughing in a loving way, she said. And it's clear that for Lee and Lifeson, their optimism about Rush's new chapter is a welcome relief after a long, dark period that followed Neil Peart's death. Guys, right there. The optimism they're having now, this new leaf, and this relief that they're feeling after a long, dark period, what do we talk about in this video? They're turning the page. Okay? That line says it all. All right? This is basically saying you disengage and you turn the page. They've been through enough. They're coming out. They're doing something new, something bright, something optimistic. And so many of you guys we're all excited about this. So yes, this is them basically saying we are turning the page. I think for a while we put Rush in a box, and we put that box in our closet. And it's almost felt weird to open the box. This is Lee talking, Geddy saying. But playing the Hawkins tributes, he continued, taught us that a really important thing about music. A band can end, but the music lives on. And I think we were kind of afraid to take ownership of the songs that we wrote together with Neil. Songs that we did together in that performance. The first one, especially at the Wembley, it felt so right. Man, that was really critical. You know, it's horrific that we lost Neil and then we lost Taylor, right? Two great drummers. But so many times in our life, that loss that we suffer and that we go through can lead to something good. All right? From darkness comes light. A lot of times, something that goes wrong, an opportunity can arise. From a death can come new life. And so, yes, at the Taylor Hawkins tribute, they discovered this again. They were reawakened to the possibilities that of a new possibility before them. It's like we had taken that box out of the cupboard, we had opened it up, and you know what? It was okay. Well, there you go, guys. Turning the page. That is the article in New York Times. Again, the guy who wrote the article was up there with Rush in Toronto at the end of March. This came out just not too long ago in the New York Times. Thank you, Ethan, for sending me this article. Guys, I am so elated to be back here with you. I'm sorry I was gone so long. I really am. It's just like after that, after being in the hospital, having to change my diet, adding back exercise to my routine, having this big question mark, and I'm not anxious about it. It's a question mark, a concern. You know, instead of being anxious about something, instead of saying worried, I say concerned because that's something that's healthy. That's something that can be addressed. I am very concerned about my lungs. I don't know what they saw in that x-ray. That's still an outlier question that needs to be answered. But for now, I'm not going to let that get me down. You know what? That took a long time for me to get there. This whole event of having my heart checked out, realizing that I needed to make some changes just to stay healthy, just to stay in the game, but also having this outlier of my lungs, which, by the way, they were damaged back during the COVID days. I was given a treatment that I should not have been given. And I wonder if that damaged me. That's all I'm going to say. I don't want to be flagged by some algorithm on this sucker. But that's what I didn't mention earlier to you now. So I'm not going to go into the weeds on this. Just know that I am concerned about it, but I'm optimistic. I've lost track of the amount of things, the amount of times I should have been dead throughout my life. I have lost track. It's literally countless because I'm unable to count them. And yet, God still wants me here for some reason. He's not done with me. When he's ready to bring me home, he will. Fine. That's up to him. But until then, I'm going to keep unplugging. Until then, I'm going to keep turning the page to a better chapter. I'm going to keep trying, guys, and I hope you do too. Guys, leave me your comments. Let me know what you think about this article. I have a lot more coming. I'm trying to play some catch up here, guys. I'm glad to be back. I'm glad that you're back here with me. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for being here. As always, I'm Eric. This is the Loudboy Experience. It's good to be back. You guys have a good night.